All right. Hi, this is Virgie Rodriguez with A Race of Your Own, where we talk about how inspiration leads to resilience, or the other way around, how resilience leads to inspiration. And this week's guest, I have decided to, this will probably have to be broken up into two parts because he is that much of a icon and legend. And so I'm going to read his credits here, and go through his career, and I'm going to take my time. And I don't know if he feels very comfortable about that, but I'm going to do it because he deserves it. So anyway, so a legend in his own right. He has worked nationally and internationally as a director, choreographer, writer, actor, and dancer in feature films, theater, commercials, opera, television, music videos, rock tours, and even Cirque du Soleil. In his career, he's collaborated with artists like Bjork, Diana Ross, Lionel Richie, Madonna, and Michael Jackson. He directed and choreographed Madonna's Blonde Ambition tour, the centerpiece for the documentary Madonna's Truth or Dare. He created Madonna's Marie Antoinette Vogue performance for the MTV VMA Awards in 1990. He also choreographed Madonna for the film Evita in 96 and her Academy Award performance in 1991. He also choreographed music videos for Hot for Teacher for Van Halen, I remember that one. California Girls for David Lee Roth, I remember that one too. As well as videos for George Harrison, Donna Summer, Sheena Easton, and Paul McCartney. That's only 25%, folks. Here we go. In films, he's directed, which was an interesting stat, he directed 100 cameras at the same time and choreographed the musical sequences for Lars von Trier's, I think I'm saying that right, film Dancer in the Dark, which was awarded the highest regard you could get at the Cannes Film Festival, the Palme d'Or. He also choreographed several films, including some that you may have heard of. The Birdcage, which starred Robin Williams, Closer for director Mike Nichols, Evita for Alan Parker, and even Hook for Steven Spielberg. I think I'm saying this next title correctly. Threnody, his 2002 short dance film, was a reflection on the September 11th tragedy. It won the Gold Jury Award at the Houston Cinema Arts Festival. He directed the television film In Search of Dr. Seuss, which received not one, not two, not three, but 7 Emmy Award nominations. He's choreographed ABC's South Park, starring Glenn Close. South Pacific, excuse me. South Park is a whole other show. He choreographed ABC's South Pacific, starring Glenn Close, and has served as choreographer for several Academy and Grammy Award programs. As a cinematic tribute to his direction and choreography in an array of electronic media, the Lincoln Center Film Society presented an evening entitled Master of the Media, because I don't want to say his name yet, but of Vincent Paterson, Master of the Media. A similar evening was previously held at Cinémathèque Française in Paris as well. He has choreographed over 250 commercials, including campaigns for Pepsi, General Electric, Rubbermaid, and Nike. And he even directed commercials for one of my favorite restaurants, El Pollo Loco. He's directed television series like Dharma and Greg and a documentary for Project Angel Food. As a dancer in his early career, he danced for Shirley MacLaine. He appeared in many television specials, including with people like Linda Carter, the Osmonds, and even partnered with Olivia Newton-John and Diana Ross in their music videos. He is featured in the Smithsonian publication Masters of Movement, Portraits of America's Greatest Choreographers. He has served as a judge on Bravo's dance reality series Step It Up, alongside actress and dancer Elizabeth Berkley. The highly acclaimed documentary about his life, titled The Man Behind the Throne, has been shown nationally and internationally and has garnered numerous awards for Swedish director Kurtzy Grunditz. We're all, we're halfway there.
Oh, gosh.
We're there. We're halfway there. His direction of the play Gangsta Love, which was set in a boxing club boxing club, earned him a Los Angeles Drama Log Award for Outstanding Director. He garnered a Tony nomination for his work as choreographer on Kiss of the Spider Woman, which starred Cheetah Rivera on Broadway, which I'm actually going to go see that film tonight with Miss Jennifer Lopez. He directed the opera Manon for both the LA Opera and the Berlin Staatsoper, which was conducted in LA by Placido Domingo. He directed some stellar performance for a benefit for APLA, featuring performers like Madonna, Liza Minnelli, Barbara Streisand, Billy Joel, Elton John, Natalie Cole, Patti LaBelle, and Rod Stewart. In 2009, he wrote and directed and co-choreographed with Cirque du Soleil the Viva Elvis show, which ran in Vegas for over 1,000 performances. And in 2016, he directed and choreographed Lloyd Webber's musical Evita in Vienna. I saved the best for towards the end here. Some of the best for me, being a dancer and coming from the dance world. For Michael Jackson, he is one of the 2 fighter dancers in Beat It music video alongside Michael Peters, and was assistant choreography and zombie dancer in Thriller. He co-directed and co-choreographed Jackson's Bad World Tour, as well as co-choreographing Jackson's music videos. Wait for it. Smooth Criminal, The Way You Make Me Feel, Dirty Diana, Speed Demon, Black or White, Michael Jackson's live performance for the halftime Super Bowl, the Grammys, and the MTV 10th anniversary. He also co-directed and co-choreographed the music video for Jackson's hit Blood on the Dance Floor. In his autobiography titled Icons and Instinct, which he co-wrote with Amy Tofty, he recounts intimate and exciting stories about his life and career in the entertainment industry. He tells with humility the fascinating universe of film sets, the rehearsal sessions where he has had to orchestrate and synchronize dozens of dancers, life backstage, his successes and his disappointments. It is a dive into the heart of the world of dance. Welcome, Vincent Paterson.
Thank you very much. And that introduction, I mean, we should just end the show.
I made him sit through that, which maybe I should have recorded separately now that I'm thinking about it. Sorry, Vincent, I made you sit through that.
That's okay. Am I red? I don't know.
No.
Okay.
But I feel like, I wanted to get all of that with you here.
Thank you. I've done a lot of things. It's true.
Because I feel like you are, and I'll say for me, and my perspective being a dancer and coming up in the industry and watching and remembering this work, watching it back. As a kid, it inspired me to want to be a performer. It inspired me to want to be a dancer, to do that. I felt like you were almost teaching me, because I remember seeing Beat It and being like, oh, I want to do, what is that? I want to be that dancer right there, dancing alongside an artist like Michael, right? Because Michael was had such a heavy impact on me as a performer.
On
right?
all of us, I think.
On all of us, and Janet as well, right? And Madonna, right? But, so I just want to say thank you for taking the time, for being here, because I feel like your impact resonates with a lot of people. And telling your story is just as important.
Thank you for the invitation, B.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Of course. So, I kind of want to start from the beginning here, and which I didn't get into too much, but I started with it talking about your book, Icons and Instincts. And I was going between the book and the audio. I was going between both. But you talked about your DNA for being a dancer came from your father, and that, but that relationship was a little, tense. And I think there was a thread I felt too with like my father, my relationship with my father, which was tense as well. And as dancers, like how that translated like that relationship into becoming a dancer. Mm-hmm. And so what was that kind of transition or like kind of translation for you?
Well, it wasn't exactly the same because my father was a social dance teacher. And so it wasn't like I wanted to learn it as a profession. It was just something that everybody, when I was growing up, everybody danced social dance all the time, whether you went to a party or a baptism or a backyard barbecue, everybody got out and did the jitterbug or the cha-cha or the mambo or salsa dance or something like that. So it was that kind of dancing, but it wasn't something that I took seriously. I just sort of did it because it came natural to me. No, I really wanted to be an actor is what my dream was. It had nothing to do with dance at all. And I did a lot of acting in junior high and high school, and then went on to college and acted in college and created a first theater major at the school I went to because they didn't have a theater major, and I loved it. It was Dickinson College. And I was very poor growing up, and they gave me scholarships to stay there if I would create the first theater major at the university. So that's what I did. And went on then to act at Society Hill Playhouse in Philadelphia after I got out of school. And then I just said, part of my dream is to get the hell out of this cold weather. I was living outside of Philadelphia. So a girlfriend of mine said, I feel the same, Vincent. So we got in a car and we just started traveling. And traveled across the country and wound up in Tucson, Arizona in the middle of January, and it was warm, and I said, oh, I'm getting out and I'm staying here. And stayed there for 5 years, and that's when I began dancing. So.
And I got to the part in your book where you talked about being at Dickinson and you guys did something for Easter weekend. And it was like this performance art that you did for Easter weekend. And I was like, oh my God, that's so ambitious. But like they did it, you know, and but to me, I could already sense that performance, that like performance art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bug, right?
Well, I did, all the regular kind of plays in college. I didn't do anything musical. I didn't dance or do any singing or anything like that. But I did Shakespeare and I did contemporary pieces and avant-garde pieces. And my the one man who ran the theater there really believed in me, and he said, you should pull your own little theater company together here and do little extracurricular things. So I did. I pulled about 9 people together, and we did very bizarre pieces, including the one you're talking about, which I will explain a little bit.
Okay.
So it was Easter. I was a hippie. I had hair very long down my back. And, when I was in 8th grade, I went to Catholic school, and I was elected to be the boy most like Jesus. And we'll talk about that another session.
And that's
maybe.
a title in one of the chapters in your book.
It is.
Yeah.
And so everybody said, okay, so you're going to be Jesus. And they made a cross, and I carried this cross. They made a fake crown of thorns, and I put on a robe-y kind of thing, and we marched down the street with about 20 people all together down the main street, and I'm carrying this cross, and we get to the main square of the college, and they lean the cross up against the tree, on the ground, and they put me on the cross with ropes and leaned me up against the tree, and I sat up I hung on the cross for 3 hours.
Wow.
And people just walked by, students walking by looking at me like, what the hell is going on up there? And I had a crazy time in college, but it was a beautiful time. It was. It reminded me of yesterday with the No Kings March. Because I was a hippie and very political, and marched on Washington, marched on New York, marched on the Army War College that was in the city where I went to school, and. It was a very interesting time, and in theater it was a very interesting time. It was a time of the living theater and a lot of avant-garde stuff. So my education in theater was very, very broad. The only thing that I did movement-wise was I dabbled in mime for a little while. I didn't really like the idea of mime, classical mime, but I liked the idea of playing with the body, and there were no real dance classes when I went to Dickinson, so I never even thought of taking a class.
And you talk about in your book, you developed a friendship with Marceau Marceau. I
did. He
right?
came to the school, and we began to talk, and I telling him kind of what I told you, and he said, oh, well, come out. I'm doing a project in Chicago. Come see me in Chicago. So a friend and I went out to Chicago and hung out with him for a couple days and went back, and I put together a mime troupe, I'll call it, but we really did much more avant-garde things than pantomime, exploring our voices in different ways, and this being one of them. So it was really not a mime troupe, but this little procession down the street over Easter was the same group of people. It was more a group that did performance art.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what it sounds like. And for those of people that don't know who Marceau Marceau is, he was a very famous mime at the time, and did some amazing pantomime work, which when you kind of look at it too, it's like I'm going to draw a parallel to Michael, because there's like that through line, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of like that stuff that you're saying, that it is performance art, but it's almost like it was the freeing. That's like, it's almost like everybody goes through that era, right? Where they're just like experimenting with like a bunch of stuff, right?
Trying to find your voice.
Trying to find your voice, trying to find what it is. So then you end up in Tucson. And is that where you start kind of working and kind of fine-tuning your craft?
No, that's where I totally switched everything I thought I was supposed to do in my life. I mean, I was working, and I kept walking by this dance studio, and I'd never been in a dance studio. I'd never even seen dance, maybe on television or something, but I never went to a dance concert or anything like that. And I just kept hearing this classical music playing, and I opened the door one day, and teacher was in there. Her name was Stephanie Steigers, and she had about, I don't know, 12 female students, and they were anywhere from 10 to 17 years old, I guess. And she said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Well, I was thinking of maybe taking a dance class for exercise." And she said, "Well, we don't really have adult classes, but you could take a class like this." And I said, "Okay, I'll try that." So it was actually great because I was with all these young girls, and I approached it as an actor. You know, I instead of trying to, I was 24 years old, and I'd never done a plie. So you know, it's
Right.
like, I couldn't touch my toes. I could touch my knees, but that was
Right.
it. You know, I had no stretch.
Right.
My second position was like this, not like that. And but I was a maniac, and when I decided to do something, I'd just go all out. So I started taking these classes. I started carrying I walked around with a broomstick under my arms to pull my posture up, and I carried a Coke bottle, a plastic Coke bottle filled with sand, and so that every time I sat down, and a big telephone book in a backpack. So every time I sat down, I would sit on the ground on the telephone book to kind of open my second position. And then if I was standing, I would take the Coke bottle that was filled with sand and roll my feet over it to kind of
Give you stretch.
get my feet to do something other than look like duck feet, you know. So
Right.
I really had to work hard.
Yeah.
I really had to work hard. And I was 24 to start, so it was a
Right.
little bit late.
Little bit
But
of a late start.
but I got addicted immediately, and I changed everything and put all my energy into dance. Yeah.
And it sounds like you found there was something in there, right? Like, was it just the way of expressing yourself through your body? Because again, you were already experimenting through college, right? And so was it something about dance that just resonated with you, where it was something about the way you could just move your body? Like, what about being like, yeah, I'll take a ballet class? Like, what was that? What was that?
I'm not exactly sure. I do know that it was probably the feeling of I was never an athlete. I had, well, that's not, let me rephrase that.
Okay.
I was a cross country runner in 10th grade and 11th grade, but I broke my foot in 5 places in an automobile accident going into 12th grade. And so I couldn't do anything. And so I did stop doing all sports, and I had a really hard time. So I just became a theater mole, basically. And that was the reason I wanted to do dance, was for exercise. That's what I thought I wanted to do. But the minute I started taking class, it was those endorphins that kind of flow through your body. I mean, they're better than drugs, and they get you so high, and you know the feeling. You're
Yeah.
a dancer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's nothing like it, you know, and I had
Right.
never experienced that before. So that, I think, is what really kept me coming back, was that incredible feeling of, oh my God, I can't believe my body feels like this. And also, I think as an actor, even though I did a lot of physical stuff, I used to look at the world kind of just right through my eyes like this, as opposed to this. And when I started to dance, I felt I was a three-dimensional figure traveling through the world rather than eyes with a body hanging off them, you know? And that made a big difference in how I just lived my life, actually. Everything changed when I started dancing like that. Everything. I changed my eating habits. I changed my, well, obviously, exercise regime. And I just got addicted. I got addicted so easily. I guess it was something that was waiting there for me.
Right. And it sounds like it grounded you.
Yeah, oh,
Something
really?
about it
Yeah.
grounded you.
Absolutely grounded me.
You know, put your feet kind of in the earth, on the earth.
Yeah.
And so getting to Phoenix and you starting, or excuse me, Tucson,
okay.
Arizona.
That's okay.
Arizona's close, Arizona. Getting to Tucson, getting to Arizona, kind of start, you're 24 years old, you're training. At what moment, so you started training there for a while, and I remember in like your book, because you went to like Palm Springs too, you jumped to Palm Springs and then you went to LA, right? You came to LA.
I would come back and forth from Tucson to LA to take some classes, and
Okay.
back and forth. I took some classes from like Joe Tremaine. I took classes from Bill and Jackie Landrum.
Yeah.
And I took a class from Lester Wilson. And but I would go back and forth. And then I had a very personal situation happen when I was in Los Angeles, and I had to leave Los Angeles, and I had to move someplace else. And I thought, well, I might as well go to LA, and I'm not going to go back to the cold. So
Yeah.
let me go to LA and see if I can make it there.
Yeah. And then I remember you talking about Joe Tremaine in your book, and there was something about the way that he was performing, that you were like, oh, he was so free, and you were just the way you explained him. Because anybody that's worked with Joe or been around Joe or taken any of his classes, rest in peace, Joe Tremaine, knows just how much of an impact too, because so many dancers came out of his school.
Oh my gosh, he was
Right.
so wonderful, and he was so powerful,
Right.
and just such a joy, you know. I mean, such a delight. He just made you feel good just going in there, and he was always so complimentary, and he was so full of energy, and it was, I don't know, his classes were like a party, but you learned so much, and it was the same thing with Bill and Jackie Landrum. I mean, they were like my gurus, really. They taught me so much, and yeah, and I took some ballet. I took a little bit of tap, but tap didn't really appeal to me that much. But I did modern, and I did jazz, and I did a lot of ballet, and yeah, I just wanted to learn everything I could. I wanted to soak it all up like a sponge, you know.
And I'm going to kind of jump forward a little bit, that when you got to LA, you started to tour with Miss Shirley MacLaine, who I love too, from Sweet Charity. She's like one of my favorites, and she's written some amazing books too. But and that the money that you made from that tour, because that's where, around that time was where you became friends with Michael Peters, right? And you started working with him, or just you guys came together and said, you mentioned to him, hey, why don't we get some dancers together and just start choreographing some stuff, right? I got some money. Let me book some studio space and let's start creating. So here comes in again that like kind of creative outlet, that experimentation.
Well, it was kind of like that. Michael and I had danced together on some TV shows for Lester Wilson predominantly, and then Michael decided he wanted to teach class, and he taught at Dupre Dance Studio
I
on
remember,
Third, and which unfortunately doesn't exist
Right.
anymore. All the great dance studios of LA are gone.
They're gone.
You know, Alley Cat's gone. Debbie Reynolds is
Edge,
gone.
Debbie
Edge,
Reynolds.
Edge gone. They're all gone.
Millennium.
Joe Tremaine's
Joe
first studio gone.
Gone.
Mauro Landis gone. I mean,
Landis.
crazy.
The Dome.
Yeah, all different things now. But
Right.
so with Michael, we had become friends, hanging out because we were working together on TV shows, and then he wanted to teach, and so I started taking his class, and I would kind of be his assistant teacher, I guess you could call, because I could dance his style very, very well, and I could pick up everything that he threw out like a split second after it came out of his brain, you know. Something happened between us that was really amazing that way. So, yeah, I got my first great big gig, and that was where I made money for the first time in my life, really, with dancing with Shirley MacLaine around the world, and that was a very interesting job. But I came back and I said, Mike, he was talking about he wanted to be a choreographer, and he didn't know how to start exactly. And I said, look, I got some money, and you're teaching at Dupre. I'm sure they'll give us a discount if we buy some classes after everybody else stops. So he picked 5 people, and I picked 5 people, and it was only for him, not for me as a choreographer, just me as a dancer. And we met 4 or 5 times a week from, say, like 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, you know, and just anything he wanted to do, we were there for him. And that was his basic choreographic training. That was his little school of dance, you know, and he had 10 amazing people to work with him. And yeah, it was phenomenal for all of us involved.
And it's kind of also testament to, like, even in today's day and age, right? Investing in yourself. It's really like you bet on yourself in that sense. And you bet on him
Absolutely.
too, but you bet on yourself in that sense and said, look, I got a little change here. Why don't we go do something with it?
Exactly.
Right? Like, let's kick something up and start doing something. And so around this time was when Michael Jackson was going to embark on a solo career. And, you know, he had been forefront of the Jackson 5 at the time. Billie Jean was a success, right? And so he was going to go shoot a second music video. And so Michael had co-choreographed Dreamgirls with Bob Girardi. Giraldi,
No,
I think it was.
with Michael Bennett.
Oh, Michael Bennett. Okay.
Yeah.
It says he co-choreographed, which led Bob hiring him to choreograph Beat It. Excuse me. Right. And so
Yeah, Bob Girardi had seen Dreamgirls, and Bob Girardi was from New York, and Michael Jackson, I suppose, had contacted Bob Giraldi to direct Beat It. And so he said, well, let me bring in Michael Peters. He's a great choreographer, blah, blah, blah. And he won a Tony for Dreamgirls and all of this. And so Michael Jackson said, sure. So, yeah, that was the team.
And there was an interesting point that you made, again, in your book, where you say Michael referred to his cinematic creations not as music videos. He always called them short films.
Oh, yeah. They were never music videos. Everything he did was a short film. He was a major film buff, and he just believed that whether it was 3 minutes or 20 minutes or 10-minute Smooth Criminal, these were films. These weren't music videos. He never thought of them as music videos. He always thought of them as films.
And when thinking about, like, thinking back on them now, like even Beat It, right? Even Billie Jean too, right? There's such a strong storyline to all of them.
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
of them have such a strong storyline, and you could tell Michael did his homework when it came to like films. Like he was a film nerd. Yeah. Like that's what he was. And like he'd say it all the time, right? And so Michael Peters came back and said, look, they're working on this music video or this short film. Excuse me, short film. See, I even said it. Short film. It's gonna be Beat It, but it's about gangs and it's gonna be in LA. But you have to audition because you had already been working with Michael. You already Michael Peters. You're already creating stuff. But he was like, but you have to audition. Right. So at that point, you were like, great, audition. Right.
Yeah.
So were you at that time? You know, were you a fan of Michael? Obviously, I mean, Michael was so famous even since he was a kid, right? So were you a fan of Michael, or is that something you were looking for? Was to you at that point, was it just like, hey, it's a gig. I'm just gonna go audition for this thing?
A combination of both. I wasn't a huge Michael Jackson fan, you know.
Right.
I liked some stuff. He was so young through the Jackson 5, you know. I mean, I liked Shake Your Body Down to the Ground that, by the Jackson 5. Like, I loved that song.
Right.
But you know, and I thought Billie Jean was very, very interesting, but I wasn't a huge Michael Jackson fan at the time.
Right.
And, but I auditioned. I thought it was a gig, great gig, and Michael was cool. Michael Jackson seemed cool, and of course, I love Michael Peters. I would have done anything for him. So, so I auditioned, and the fun part was that this is where my acting training came in. So. All the other male dancers that came basically wore, now remember, it was early 80s, so it was like skin-tight stretch leotard tops and skin-tight dance pants and leg warmers, and usually in neon colors, you know. And I knew it was a gang, so I grew my beard a little bit, and I wore an earring, and I greased my hair back a little bit, and I came in and kind of what I wound up wearing in the short film, actually, a little jacket, a little T-shirt, some jeans, and I kept seeing Michael Jackson up there with Giraldi and Peters and saying, "Who's that guy over there? Who's that guy over there?" And Michael Peters would say, "Oh, that's Vincent Paterson. He dances with me a lot, you know." But they didn't tell us anything that first day. You know, I went home, and Michael Peters called me and he said, "Well, doll, why don't you come on over? I have some news for you." And it sounded like I didn't get it, you know. So I went over to his apartment, and I went in and I said, "Michael, what? Tell me what?" And he goes, "You got it, doll. You got it, Miss Thing. You got it, you know. And guess what? I'm going to be opposite you. We're going to both be playing the gang leaders." And I was like, oh my God, how cool is this? So that's kind of how it began.
And that's a dream to come true on many levels, because as an actor, right, you got to play a gang member, right? But then you're also dancing.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And opposite my best friend at the time. So, you know.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I was going to like. And it says, we jumped around from your book, and I quote, "We jumped around the apartment screaming like 6-year-olds. It was the beginning of my journey with Michael Jackson."
That's certainly true. Yes, it was.
And then that's when it goes into the boy most, like, Jesus Comes to Hollywood. It's the next chapter. Is the next title of the next chapter right after that. Right. And so, you know, it kind of moves into Smooth Criminal. Right. And for me as a dancer, again, growing up watching this, I remember that Michael would do these iconic projects, because Smooth Criminal is really it's part of a bigger project, film is what I'm going to call it, which was Moonwalker. And if I kind of started rewatching parts of Moonwalker again, and I was like, this is really a sign of the times, because it was like Michael was so ahead of so many things, and there's so many, his stuff is so coded. Like, it's so coded that if you were to watch Moonwalker now, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
This is art imitating life
Yeah.
in so many ways, because Moonwalker says a lot. There's
Absolutely.
a lot in Moonwalker, right? And so Smooth Criminal is just a smaller part of that, right? Of the bigger film. So it's a short film within a film.
Yeah.
But I remember, you can't pick one Michael Jackson music video, right? Like, you can't. Like, Thriller is like, I mean, we didn't even talk about the zombie dancer.
Right.
You're a zombie dancer in Thriller as well. Like, iconic, right? Like, we were just skipping over that. We can't skip over that, right? But so you got to work Beat It, right? You're the gang. Then you're a zombie dancer in Thriller.
Right. I assisted Michael Peters on both of them.
On both
too,
of those. And then I'm going to say this next part because, again, I was like, this was the one part of the book. I was like, I'm just going to open it and then read the quote. And I marked it because I was like, I'm just going to see what it says and whatever. And it says, right when you kind of found out that you were going to work on Smooth Criminal, Mike Jackson and I returned to the recording studio and I listened to Smooth Criminal music track a few more times. Then he handed me a cassette of the song to take home. I want you to take it and I want you to let the music talk to you, he said. Let the music tell you what it wants to be.
Exactly.
I don't understand, I said. You replied. Are you making a short film? Are you asking me to dance in it? No, Michael said. I want you to come up with the idea for it, choreograph it, and direct it. You go on to say, I was reeling numb.
Absolutely. I had no idea, I mean, I had choreographed a few small things, nothing big at all. After Beat It, the funny part was that so many people thought that was who I was, that character in Beat It. So I would get calls from like Van Halen or David Lee Roth thinking that I was this heavy duty rock
This
and
punk
roller,
guy. Yeah.
And I would show up and they were like, oh, hi. And I was like,
You're
yeah,
a
this is the
dancer.
real me,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That was a character, But anyway, so yeah, I didn't. Michael called me up. Michael Jackson called me. I was sitting at home, and he said, "I'm down the street. Can you come visit? Come see me? I'm in a recording studio." And I did. He played a little bit of the music. It didn't even have all the words. All he had was, "Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? You've been hit by a smooth criminal," but nothing else. I had no idea what it was about, and I was just kind of shocked. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I had done 2 pieces, worked with him, and as an assistant choreographer, you have the benefit oftentimes of working one-on-one with the celebrity because usually the choreographer will teach you and then teach them or the dancers and then step away, and the assistant comes in and cleans everything up, as you well know. And that's what I did. So I got to spend some intimate time with Michael Jackson that way, and if he was unsure about something, he would ask me and I would make him feel confident, and he was always so shy, and I would say, hey, come on, hang out with the dancers. That's what happened on Thriller.
Right.
We were shooting downtown and he was sitting in his trailer and I said, Mike, come on out, let's come on out and play with everybody, just hang, and he was like, oh, Vince, I'm so shy. I'm like, that's all right, everybody loves you, man. It's like nobody wants anything from you. They're all dancers, we're all equals here.
Right.
And he came out and he would hang out and have a great time, and I guess that was part of it. I mean, he knew that I had a certain skill, having been very specific in the teaching of Michael Peters' choreography, but also I think there was that element of being a nice guy and making him feel comfortable. I think that had a lot to do with it. Reason him for asking me, and originally, you see, Smooth Criminal was supposed to stand alone. It wasn't part of Moonwalker. Moonwalker hadn't existed yet. That's why he asked me to direct it. What happened eventually is it was postponed for several months because Jerry Kramer, a producer, got a big idea about, okay, let's make this into Moonwalker. Let's put all these different pieces together and thread them through this story, So when that happened, Colin Chilvers, who was a DGA director already and directing everything else, they just said, oh, you direct all the video things. So that's what happened.
That's amazing.
So he did them all, yeah.
And a lot of Michael's influence too was Fred Astaire, because it was taken from that movie, The Bandwagon. Right?
Well, that's what people say, but I had never seen The Bandwagon. You see, I
at the time.
Yeah.
At the time. And Michael never even mentioned it at the time?
No.
He just kind of,
No.
You don't see the reference. You
I
just
wasn't,
you just did the work.
later I realized
Yeah,
it,
right,
or
right.
when we were starting to do it, people would say, "Oh, this reminds me of Bandwagon," and I went back to look at Bandwagon,
And you're
and
like,
I was
oh,
like, "Oh, whoa, okay,"
right.
But I just, he said, "Let the music talk to you," which was what I started to use as my mantra with for all the years I was choreographing. Rather than me impose my feelings on a piece of music, I
Right.
would sit back and dream about it and let the music actually visually tell me what it wanted to be. And
Yeah.
that's why I came back and I met with him and I said, okay, I see this as a kind of an underground club, Chicago, maybe the 30s, something like that. And he was like, oh, I like that idea. So he said, do it. And he went off to finish his album, and I cast everybody and did the whole thing, and I would record it on a video recorder and take it to his house on Havenhurst and show him at nighttime. And we started out with 10 dancers, and he would say, "Oh, I love it, Vince, but I think you need more dancers, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, Mike, sure, I'll take more dancers." So, "Why don't you get 10 more dancers?" So I do
You're
that.
like 20 dancers.
Then I do that, and then he'd go, I love it, but I think you need more dancers, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, Mike. Why don't you get 20 more dancers?" "Okay, sure."
Was it 40 dancers? How many
Oh, no,
dancers?
I think we had 60 dancers ultimately.
Wow.
Yeah. And he would say, "Well, I think you need some more music, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." So the 4-minute track wound up being a 10-minute track because he just kept giving me more music to play with. So I went with it. I mean, come on.
I mean, and that music video, again, it's one of my favorite Michael Jackson music videos, mainly because there's so many iconic moments. The lean, right, which we all love, right? And then Michael also had a thing. There's two different things. One, there's a video recently that just went viral with you and Michael rehearsing for Smooth Criminal, and you were talking about how he used to be in full garb, like the spats, the tie, the hat, the jacket, to feel like he was really in character.
Absolutely.
And as a dancer watching it, right, I'm watching it and I'm going, oh, they're just vibing off of each other. They're just having fun. And as you read comments, people are like, oh my God, they're amazing. But I could tell between the two of you, you were just laughing and you'd do something and then he'd do it. And then, you guys would just, you could tell you were just building, right? So it seemed like he had this trust in you so much that you understood his music. And then he was breaking down the musicality. He was like breaking down the accents like that. Like he was breaking it down to you. You just picked it up right away and just did it.
Well,
right?
The way it would work is when I worked with Michael, I would choreograph everything that had to do with any other person. If there was anybody else involved with any movement, it was me. I did everything. The only thing that Michael, and I'm not saying only as if it's lesser, but the only stuff that Michael choreographed is moments when he's by himself. So when he was up on the stage with the musicians behind him, that's him. But everything else is me. It's me. Or Jeffrey Daniels. Jeffrey Daniels was there, and he choreographed some of the hip hop guys, the street guys that were there around the table, and a little bit another section just before the lean that I put in. But yeah, that's the way I always worked with Michael. So even though it says co-choreography,
Yes.
I need to make it clear that the only choreography that Michael ever did was his own specific solo choreography.
Okay.
Everything else was always mine, or Michael Peters, or anybody else who was working with him. You know.
And
but in terms of what you were talking about, so I would create that piece. What you were looking at on YouTube, probably.
Yes.
It was the two of us working together, and I wore my black suit, and
Right,
he
and
had
your
a suit,
hat,
so
yeah.
I had the same feeling. And then I would show him what I had created, and he would say like, "Oh, could we put it on this beat?"
Right.
So he never changed the movement. He would just say, "How about on this beat instead of that beat?" So that's how we worked together.
Was there ever a moment, like, because for me, listening to this, I'm like, it's Michael Jackson. Like, I'm like, what would that be like? Was there ever a moment where you did something and he's like, I don't like it? And
Never.
like, really?
Never. Never.
He just trusted you like that. He's like, it looks great.
It was
I love it.
absolutely unbelievable,
That's
that kind
amazing.
of trust, I mean, the difference between working with Michael and Madonna, Madonna, if I ever told her I had an idea, she would say, that sounds like shit. I have to see it first, And Michael Jackson would be like, oh, okay, So, and then always, neither one of them ever made me change anything. Once they saw what I was doing, they were both very happy. But it was just that difference between Michael being totally trusting of me and Madonna always being a little skeptical or a little more wary of everything.
And she's next, who we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But also there was that, and then there was the other thing of Michael, that he liked to use hip hop dancers. he liked the popping, the locking. Rest
Yeah.
in peace, Pop and Taco, who was
Yeah.
in Smooth Criminal right next to him, right? So
And
there
beat
was
it, too.
and then beat it,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was
So
in
there
Beat
was
It, right.
there's something about street dance. I'll call it street dance
Yeah.
because that's what everybody was calling it
Yeah,
at the time.
absolutely.
Right. That he loved about that, and I mean, he perfected the moonwalk. He perfected any robotic
Oh,
stuff.
come on, you
like
know.
I mean, but there was something about that he really incorporated in almost everything he did.
He did. He really loved it. And on Sundays, at that point of time anyway, he would get a group of guys. I don't know if Jeffrey was one of them or not, but Papa Taco was one of them, I'm for sure. And
And
they,
Pop and Pete, right?
Pop and Pete was one, and he would fast. He would fast on Sundays. He wouldn't eat, and he would get these guys together for several hours in a dance studio, and they would just all play. They would just all
Right.
dance, and he was just one of them dancing, you know. And that's where he kind of learned the moonwalk. It was called the backslide originally,
Yeah.
and then he took that, and I mean, he didn't steal it. Come on, he
No.
took it and he perfected it into the moonwalk. I mean, you know, it's. Yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal what he was able to do.
And I think that's just touching to that point, which was like at the time, the importance or the impact that street music, hip hop music at the time, rap music, whatever you want to call it, had even on someone like Michael.
Yeah.
Right. Where he felt the importance of it, but there was something, he had a love for that dance. Like he had a love for that so much because even watching, somebody had pointed out the snake dance in Bob Fosse's The Little Prince, where you could see the tapered pants with the white sock and the loafer, and you could see that Michael maybe took that from there, but you could see his influences. But, and I've always said this, it's like he would take it, but he would make it Michael's.
Absolutely.
Right? So nobody will moonwalk like Michael.
Right.
Nobody will pop the way Michael would pop. But you could tell his passion for it.
Oh.
Like because you watch those rehearsals, because I know exactly those tapes you're talking about, where he would gather those guys around and they just like all vibe off of each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And but it's because he had a love for it. He's like, oh yeah. And it would like spark him.
He was possessed. He really was. He was possessed by a lot of different angels, I
Energies,
guess.
yeah.
But in terms of his dancing, like if it wasn't his, I mean, I never saw him work on his own stuff. I never saw that. So I don't know how much of it was improv or how much he spent time he spent in front of the mirror. But I know whenever he was doing my stuff that he would want to go with me first and learn everything that I did, and then he would want to work just by himself in front of a mirror. And for that one little section in Smooth Criminal, you know, that boom, 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 you know, he would do that section in front of a mirror in the rehearsal studio for maybe 3 hours. Just
Wow.
those two eights, so that by the time he was done, it would look as if it was improvisation.
Right.
It was so in his body that he never had to think about it. It was just part of his DNA. You
Right.
know?
Right.
He was so brilliant that way. Absolutely brilliant.
He was, and rest in peace, Michael. But I think that that's also a testament to you, right, as a choreographer and as someone that has to pull certain things out of artists, because choreographers, co-choreographers, co-directors,
Thank you.
got to pull that sometimes
Yeah, you do.
out of artists,
You
and then you
do.
take it with you,
Yeah.
because people that have worked with people like Michael, Madonna, etc., you guys have this certain kind of energy, right? Because you're working with really high level acts, and they're iconic, and then turns your work into iconic work as well.
Exactly.
And I have a question for you too, and then we're gonna take a break. Okay. But when you look back, at your career, what moment or project first made you realize that movement and storytelling was your true calling? And you don't have to pick one, but maybe there was something, like there was.
Well, I will say that creating Smooth Criminal changed everything for me, because I got to be a choreographer in a major way, doing the biggest piece that had ever been done in any kind of, I'll say, music video for the moment, but nobody had ever done anything like that, with that amount of dancers, that amount of dancing, and that amount of storytelling in a short period of time, all through movement. But I also got to I got to use my directing chops, and I got to play with all the dancers as actors and teach them what it meant to be an actor, and given them a lot of acting exercises. They had to write their own biographies of who their character was.
Oh, nice.
so that and when we rehearsed the set, you remember the green door that he would go in and out. Well, every time I wanted to rehearse, I would make the dancers go through that green door to go onto the set. Once they got on there, they were only allowed to call each other by their character names that they had created. And they had to stay in character until the rehearsal session was over. And then they had to exit through the green door to leave the club. And then once they were out, they could be themselves again. But I really, really worked on them so that every time you see a close-up of anybody in there, you believe them.
Yeah.
You know, that they don't look like a dancer.
No.
You can see something going on in their head. There's stories going on, you know.
Right.
And that was a real joy. So really Smooth Criminal changed everything for me.
You were directing the stories within the stories.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating,
Yeah.
right? Because especially now moving into this place where we're like all independent creators.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you're actually, I mean, I think that's a great piece. It's like people just like, you know, with social media, I'm not messing with all the social media, but so many social media, everybody's a dancer, everybody's a this, everybody's a that. Everybody just throws these titles around. Right. And it's like, no, you have a trajectory of work, but also a certain work ethic and a certain something that you're bringing that you're like, no, this isn't art. This is a job. Like I am actually teaching. Because even if I were a dancer on that set, I'd be like, why is he making me write this bio? Like, I just want to dance. Right. But then it's like looking back at that piece of work. If I go back and listen, I watch Smooth Criminal just for inspiration, just because, right. Just as a piece of art.
Thank you.
Right. Yes. No, for real. Because now when I look at it, I go, that's why the girl dressed in the red with the fan, I see that now. I understand she had her character name in her head.
Oh, yeah.
And that's who she was every time
yeah.
the camera panned to her.
Yeah.
Right? Which is a lost art.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the funny thing about that, her name was Cinderella Che, and I had her being the proprietress of the club,
Yes.
you know. And she was very upset with me because she wanted to dance. And she didn't realize she wanted to dance more. She wanted to just be a dancer, but I cast her as that character, you know. So she did dance some, but, you know, for many years she was like, oh, I was so disappointed, Vincent, you know, that you did. And then as Smooth Criminal got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people started to know who she was and ask all about her and do all this stuff, she came back and she goes, thank you so much for casting me as that character, because I was seen by so many people in a whole different way, and it gave me so many more opportunities and so much more opportunity to believe in myself. Now she does commercials, she does so much work as an actress, you know, and I feel kind of a little bit happily responsible for that. You know?
Yeah, that's such an art. It's to actually think of, you know, artist development. A lot of that stuff is just lost. And I think it's, again, I'm not blaming social media because I'm putting this on YouTube. But, you know, it is lost because people can just think they can just watch a Michael Jackson video and just be like, I'll just copy that, you know, and it's like, there's so much that went behind
There's
that.
so much more. And everybody thinks that not everybody, but so many people think that because they teach a dance class, all of a sudden they're a choreographer. I mean, putting a combination together for a dance class is what you're supposed to do as a dance teacher. Right. You know, it doesn't necessarily make you a choreographer. There's a lot more to it than just steps.
Right.
Know?
Right.
And that was a joy that I had in working with everybody, you know, is that I would always direct them as actors as well, whether it was for a commercial or a short film or whatever it was. Robin Williams in Birdcage, you know, I would create that for him and play with it so that when you give your product to the director just, all they have to do is shoot it. You know, they don't have to start from scratch and start to direct the actors, direct the dancers. I give it to them everything they want. They can always change everything, but at least they have something to start with. And
going to that, Robin Williams, because that's one of my favorite movies too. Transition out of Michael. But, you know, did the Twilight Heart, Martha Graham, did you come up with that? Was that something that you worked with him? Because now we're going from Michael Jackson icon, you know, recording artist, blah, 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 performer. Then we have another performer, but he's a comedian, actor, like that transition. And it is still translated, right? But like, we're going to like Birdcage, Robin Williams, one of the funniest people of our time, right? Just one of, right? What was that kind of transition for you?
Well, like, I'd worked with Robin a few times. There was something called Comic Relief.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a big charity.
Yeah.
And it always opened with a number by Whoopi Goldberg and Billy Crystal and Robin Williams. And I choreographed that 2 times.
Nice.
And then after that, you had mentioned the project that I did in Search of Dr. Seuss. And I had called Robin and asked him if he would come in and play a Seussian father reading The Cat in the Hat to his children, you know. So he did that, and that was great. We had a great time putting that together. So on Birdcage, when I got invited to do that project, Mike Nichols, who was just phenomenal, I mean, the most amazing director I've ever met in my life, he wanted me to be on the set for everything. I was there from the first table read.
Wow.
He said, I want you next to me, Vincent. Any place you think that you can put movement in here, just pull me aside and tell me, and that's what we'll do. So that wasn't what happened with that little section we're talking about, the Fosse.
Right.
What happened with that was Robin Williams came to me. I was on set, and Robin came over and he goes, Vince, come here. And he goes, you got to come up with something funny for me. He goes, I'm playing the straight gay man, and I need something funny. I need something very funny. And I said, okay, Robin, give me 5 minutes. Go do the scene that you're doing, and then come back behind the set, and I'll have something for you. So he did, and he came back behind the set, and I taught him that whole little thing. And he came back onto the set, and they said, okay, ready, let's shoot. And they shot it, and he did that. And the whole crew, Mike Nichols, Elaine May, everybody just broke up. They thought it was just him improvising.
Right.
And so he finished, and Mike Nichols said, oh, that's very funny, Robin. And he goes, no, Vincent made that up for me. And he goes, that's very fun, boys. That's very fun. But let's shoot this as Elaine wrote it. And Mike got down on his hands and knees. Robin got down on his hands and knees and crawled across the floor and said, oh, Mike, please let's shoot it. Please let's shoot it. And Mike said, look, boys. He always called it boys.
Right.
Or look, boys, let's shoot it as Elaine wrote it. And then we'll shoot what you guys just did. But I don't want you to be disappointed if it doesn't wind up in the movie. So we were very excited that it wound up in the movie. And it winds up being the thing when you say the Birdcage, almost everybody goes, Fosse. Michael,
Graham.
You know.
That's why I thought. Madonna. Yeah. Yes. It's an icon. I think it's an iconic moment in movies, you know, especially when it comes to dance and performance in movies. I mean, that's because I was like, that's Robin Williams being Robin Williams.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Well,
right?
that's what, I'm not patting myself, but that's what a good
choreographer pat yourself on the back.
That's
Vince.
what a good choreographer does, you know, is they create movement that looks the best that it possibly can on that person.
Right.
It's not choreography for me to get my kicks, you know what I mean? It's for them to look as good as they possibly can. That's always been my goal. So yes, it does. Everything that I did for Michael, it looks like Michael created it. You know, that's why people think that he was the choreographer, you know.
Right.
For Robin Williams, the same thing. There was even a biography written about him, and somebody said the best piece of improvisation that Robin Williams ever did was that section in the Birdcage. Because it looks so real, you know, so.
Right. But again, that's a testament to your work, right? And like, pulling the best out of somebody and saying, well, I think Robin, if I did this, I thought fussy, he could pull that off, right?
Exactly.
Because I mean, you're amongst greats, right? Like you're amongst these greats. So it's like, there's something about the way you see them that you know how to get the best out of them. Like I know if I was in that position, I'd be like, I don't know, like it's Michael Jackson. I think that would take over for me, right? Versus being like, no, like I see what Michael could do and he could do it this way, right? Or Robin Williams, someone like Robin Williams, I could see what he could do it this way, right? There's something to be said about, you know, your skill in seeing that in somebody at that level.
Yeah, you know, I think part of it is that, I mean, I'm very shy when I meet celebrities. I'm very kind of quiet, and I don't really talk much about what I do or anything. And I never had a publicist, and I've always been a workhorse, I feel, more than anything else. And but I always approach every celebrity that I work with as a person, not as a celebrity. And I think that makes our creative relationship much, much better, much easier. No bullshit going on, you know, because I tell them, I'm going to be your mirror. you know, and I'm going to tell you what looks good and what doesn't. Now, you are the celebrity, you're the star, it's your career, you're the one in front of the camera, the people, whatever, and you're the one who's going to ultimately make the choice that you want to make, that you feel works best for you. But you've hired me, you're paying me a nice salary, and you obviously respect my knowledge. So I'm going to tell you what I think, and if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, you do whatever you want to do. And I think they really appreciate that honesty, because I never went to Neverland, because I always felt like if I'd ever said to Michael, I want to go to Neverland, it would have changed our relationship. You
A
know,
little bit, yeah.
we had this amazing creative relationship, and during those creative times, we would have amazing deeply personal conversations in the trailers, the two of us just talking, probably like he hadn't talked to a lot of other people, to be honest with you. But I never wanted to overstep those bounds, because I
Right.
never wanted him or Madonna or Robin or Bjork or any of these amazing people I've worked with to think that I wanted something
Right.
besides what we were there to do at that time.
Yeah, yeah. And I think again for me, like he was someone I looked up to, right? So
Me too.
like, you know, it's just like such he had this magical thing, but Robin Williams too. They all have Madonna, like they all have Bjork, like they all have these are heavyweight names, Vince. Like these are big names. You know, Shirley MacLaine, like it's just like you're just, you know, and I get it. That's true, but it's also like I don't know if it was a moment in time where it was like we were like peers. We were all just peers. Like we'd be on set, we'd be working, we'd be on tours, and we were just peers.
Yeah.
So we all kind of related to artists and,
Yeah.
and celebrities kind of, you know, the same way. And so moving kind of along here, do you want to take a break? Do you want to take like a little 5-minute break? Are you
No,
good?
I'm fine.
You
I'm
sure
just
we
taking
can
a
keep
drink of
going?
water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to reset just so I know time wise what we're doing? We got like another, 25 minutes just about?
That was
We're doing
45
good.
minutes?
It was more than that.
Oh my God.
It's been more than that.
It's been 56 minutes.
Okay.
We're talking. We're talking.